Okay, John Chassis here, DeLand, Florida. We have since built the trailer. Several weeks ago, we went to Utah and Arizona, the Grand Canyon, and I thought I'd do a little walk around real quick. I never did do like a reveal for this trailer. Um, it's not done, and I'm glad we took the trip with it because it taught us a lot about uh, a lot of the things we really need and what we don't need and where to put it and how to make it convenient. So we've come back and we've made a list of things we're going to change. Number one, this trailer was bought from Tractor Supply. It's supposed to be rated 2,000 pounds. Definitely not. Not even close. We had all kinds of problems with the axle, problems with bearings, and the gross weight with everything on this loaded is probably about 1,400 pounds. So we're nowhere near the max capacity, but it failed. So I'm going to build a subframe out of 2x2 tubing, probably quarter-inch thick, something really stout, because this is an off-road trailer. I'm going to get some independent axles, some what do they call them, torsion axles that are independent. They're not tied together. Give it a little more flexibility on the trail. I'm also going to buy two more of these 18 by 18 by 4 foot sealed boxes from Tractor Supply. These things were amazing, perfect, never leaked, good storage, heavy duty. So when I do another reveal on this box will be up here, or actually this will be down because it's got a lot of the electrical in it, which I'll get to in a minute. And then I'll set another box right above it. Then moving around, we have the winch. I made a winch mount to carry it. Because I haven't mounted this to my Toyota 4Runner, I kind of use it independently. I can actually chain it to a tree, and I've got two batteries over here in the trailer that I can use to power the winch. So I could actually carry this over to a tree, tie it up, bring a battery over, and do what I need to do. I would like to eventually mount this to the truck permanently in the front. Just one less thing to carry back here, less weight. Built these little shelves, as you can see, with a diamond back or diamond plate, aluminum diamond plate, which turned out to be invaluable for setting up the CVT tent. Grab it, jump right up, you're on top. You can do all the tying down and taking apart. They worked out good. You can use them for when you're cooking or anything. Tool bench, when I had problems with one of the bearings, I was able to use that as a tool bench. You can see here I got about a 30-gallon water tank for taking showers and doing dishes. I got to do some modifications to that too. Walking around, as you can see, on all four corners of the trailer, I've got these LED floodlights. Those things have worked fantastic. Absolutely one of the best things I did. I've got them on switches so that you turn on the two back ones or the two front ones. This is the back of the trailer. As you can see, I got a flip down gate. The part you're looking at ends up being vertical and the other part horizontal, so it makes another step to be able to work on the trailer, get up top. Plus it makes a nice platform to sit on, to work on, to pull the toolboxes. As you can see, I got two of those plastic toolboxes you get from Lowe's. So you pull those out and access whatever you got in there. I installed a couple of jacks that rotate, and if you see, there's no handle because of the clearance. But what I use is a cordless drill with a long extension that goes on there, so it makes it real easy and short work of setting that up. Quick disconnects, which worked out fantastic, but I'd like to set up the shower to be permanent, so we don't have to set it up every time. Just have longer hoses, plug in, quick disconnect, whatever, or even hooked up permanently, so that again, it's one less item to set up. That was another thing we discovered during the trip, is we hung the water heater, the instant water heater, up here, and we were, I don't remember which, I think we were in Utah at that point. It was very windy, and it kept blowing out the pilot, so the hot water tank would shut off. So I ended up having to move it under here. I was concerned about the heat on the bottom of the CVT tent, but I kept it down low enough, and I put some tin foil up over that rail up in there to divert the heat and have it dissipate evenly throughout this enclosure. So I'll have to engineer something to deflect that heat from the top of that instant water heater out from under the tent, but I'd like to get it permanently set up in there. And other than that, everything works perfect. It's just a matter of tweaking it a little bit. Let me see. I think I pretty much covered everything. My granddaughter over there, she's picking leaves off of a very young oak tree and standing on my flat tire. We got a flat on the trailer in New Mexico, and my wife was driving. I was sleeping, and she woke me up and said, "Honey, I think we got a flat." And I abruptly said, "Well, I think you ought to pull over." Anyway, it was kind of cute. You gotta love your wives. So anyway, as far as the tent, the CVT tent, we got the biggest one they make. It's the Pioneer Denali. What do they call it? Extended. It's about, I want to say something like not 8 feet. I think it's 7 feet by 10 or 12. Well, it's got to be maybe 10. But anyway, it's a huge tent, and we got the annex to go with it. And when fully deployed, affords a lot of room and a lot of shelter. The tent was perfect, very, very comfortable. It comes with a 2-inch pad. We had to add another 2-inch. I weigh 255 pounds. I'm not going to give you my wife's weight because I value my life. But we decided that we needed a little more comfort for longer term. The first few nights were fine, but after that, it does squish down. So we got an extra 2 inches up there. Worked out real good. Well, I guess that's about it for now. And we're thinking about taking this out tonight. If we do, I'll do a video of deploying the tent, and should be pretty cool. Over and out. Okay, so as I was saying, up in this corner, I've got the little portalet, which we don't have to use very often because a lot of the campsites have facilities. When you're overlanding, though, or doing dispersed camping, then you have to have it. There were some places in Utah, if you were caught camping, again, dispersed camping, you had to have it. If a game warden or forest patrol or whoever came over, you had to have something like that, or you could be fined. I'm thinking about removing this stuff and putting another 4-foot box, because these boxes have become, or we've realized they're invaluable. Definitely the way to go. So make a 4-footer, get this down low somewhere out of the way. Not exactly sure where I'm going to put it yet. Then we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to move this box up or down, whichever, and we won't have to have as much of this kind of stuff. This is one of those 10 by 10 canopies. I'd prefer to have one of those 270-degree canopies. The problem is that you can see the height of the trailer. I'm 6 foot tall and may not be tall enough for me. I might have to modify or whatever, but I've got this. Having them outside tied like this, I really don't want that. We learned on the trip that all this bungeeing and tying things and untying things became cumbersome. So what we want is the boxes. This will fit in the box, and you'll see on the other side I've got a 2-burner, one of those 33,000 BTU for each burner. It's the stove that sits freestanding instead of one of those little Coleman stoves that take forever to cook. So if we have the extra boxes, we'll be able to put this stuff inside the boxes. We won't have all those peripheral loose items anymore. Okay, so coming around, you can see I put two 30-pound cylinders of propane. A lot of people have said that's an overkill, but it depends how long you're staying out, and you got to remember that we're not only using it for cooking, we're using it for the showers. And one of the things we've figured out on this trip is that cooking, especially in the wind, you use a lot of gas. It takes forever for stuff to heat up, especially in the wind. So you can see on this side of the trailer, I also have one of those shelves, and again, steps for getting up when we close the tent up or we deploy the tent. Comes in real handy. I made fabricated a off-road hitch to be able to handle all the strange angles you get into when overlanding. Having said that, the hitch worked out perfect. It did its job, and we got in some pretty precarious angles. Did a good job. But having said that, when I built it, it extended the tongue. And whenever you change anything, any kind of geometry of a trailer, you change the stresses and everything else. So we had issues because this became longer to the truck. It put more tension on this tongue, which is approximately 2 feet back underneath it's tight. It actually pulled an angle iron down. I had to stop at a Tractor Supply along the way or on the way home, and I had to add this heavy duty chunk of angle iron, which is 1/4 inch 2x2, and put some grade A bolts down through to suck the other part up. So again, when I put the 2x2 frame underneath, the new frame, it's going to be very stout, and I'm going to have that tongue go all the way through, and I'm going to shorten up the tongue. You don't want a long tongue when you're off-roading with a trailer. Probably am going to do away with one of the tanks, which means that whole mount's going to change. Another thing I learned is don't put your jack on these angle brackets. It's not stout enough to handle the weight of the tongue of the trailer. So I'm going to leave or actually transfer this thimble to the new frame, but I'm also going to add one to the main tongue. So we'll move the jack over there when we're jacking and move it over here for storage. I can raise this up and flip it up, and as you can see, we have a pin. You pull the pin, swing it in the horizontal position, put the pin back in, and the jack's out of the way. So we'll just make another thimble so we can put it on the tongue. Can handle a lot more weight. Let me see, you got the 2 batteries there, as you can see. The batteries are hooked up through the trailer hitch cable, and there's one of the pins in that trailer hitch or in the wiring harness that is actually hooked to the charging system in the vehicle and is only energized when the vehicle's on running. So it charges the 2 batteries that work flawlessly through the whole trip. I never had to start the generator and use the battery charger or plug in or anything. Right now it's kind of a little bit messy because we came back and just took whatever we needed into the house and left everything else kind of in here. As you can see over here, you look inside, you can see all my circuit breakers. So I've got my main line coming in from the battery. through this, can't remember the amperage here. I want to say it's a 50 amp. I want to say it's a 50 amp breaker, which feeds a bus, which disperses it to all the other breakers. So when I turn on this breaker right here, I'm now energizing that whole bus. And let me see, not the second breaker. The second breaker is actually feeding the LED lights in the tent. The third breaker is the front LEDs, floodlights, and again, those things were beautiful. They just light the area up so bright when you're doing any kind of task. And then, of course, the next breaker is the rear LEDs. Then I have a spare, which eventually will be filled. All these will be filled eventually. Kind of calculated everything I wanted to put in here. Okay, and then this breaker right here feeds, I don't remember. Let me think about that one for a second. This one is the 30 amp coming from the truck. So when I turn this one on, it connects the truck to charge the batteries. Or when the truck is disconnected, obviously you want to leave that breaker off because you'll backfeed that plug, which is now laying in the dirt, and you don't want that. This breaker right here, I'm going to have to label this stuff. Oh yeah, this is my cigarette lighter plugs. And not only these three main plugs, and it has plenty of amperage to handle just about anything, but it also runs up, and if you can see up here, I've got another splitter slash distribution box, which is perfect because it has 4 USBs, again high power, so it doesn't matter what we're trying to charge with the USB, whether it's micro, mini, whatever. It does a real good job. My GoPro, our phones, right off the battery, and the batteries, and that's great. These inverters, they're great for short term, but they're very, very inefficient. So when you use them on a battery, you're going to deplete your batteries quickly. You only really want to use those in emergency, or in my case, when I'm downloading video into the laptop, I'll usually set my laptop up here on the shelf, plug it in. I've got a laptop that it's a Dell Precision, and it uses a lot of power. It's what they call a portable desktop, high-powered computer. So anyway, uses a lot of power, and I can't use the battery in it for very long, especially when I'm downloading. So I've got to hook it up to this, and usually what I'll do is idle the truck while I'm doing it, so I'm not really depleting the batteries a lot, because during the night we leave the batteries in the on position to feed the refrigerator. So that refrigerator needs to run all night, and that worked out fantastic. We never had a problem with the refrigerator running out of power. And again, when the switch is off in the vehicle, it's isolated, so you're not depleting the time of the battery in the vehicle, so you're always able to start up in the morning. Got this little charger, works good when we have power. If we ever pull into an RV place, then we happen to get power, we can hook up the batteries and charge them that way. Eventually I'd like to get a solar panel to help supplement the charging. Got another little inverter here, which is great for real small stuff. You need the bit larger one for my laptop. Got a 100-foot extension cord should we be a ways from power but need to hook up. That's the first compartment. And this is the bag with the stove I was talking about, the 2-burner stove, which I'd like, again, if we have the 2 compartments, will give me room to put that inside a compartment instead of having it strapped on like this. Having said that, I'll come back here. Putting these boxes in, and even if I add the other two, you see it leaves a void in between, which came in real handy. We had a little 2,000 watt generator for backup emergency type stuff. We had a couple gas cans in there, and there was actually room for more stuff, which we didn't have to fill it. And again, we had to have a strap all the way around to strap that all down, a ratchet strap. So my plan is, when I move this up, is to have pullouts here. So have this completely closed in with the diamond plate, aluminum diamond plate, and have a hatch. These tanks will be gone. I'm going to relocate those and have a hatch that opens and have a pullout, so we can have the generator, the gas cans, and as a matter of fact, I'm hoping I may have to reframe this with vertical risers here, so that I can have one big opening to pull out, so I can put my zero gravity chairs. You know, they're kind of like a lounge chair, and those became a real pain in the butt in the vehicle, having to take them off the refrigerator all the time, and you know, get them off every time we had to get in the back of the truck. Again, I want to make it simplified just by having to pull out the two chairs on there, unclip them and set them up, but they'll stay dry. Okay, moving around. As you can see here, I've got a 12 volt water pump. You know, the take up comes in right here with a little strainer into the water pump. Water pump has a built-in pressure switch, which failed during the trip. So I'm going to eliminate that pressure switch and put in my own heavy-duty pressure switch, which also, if anybody knows anything about plumbing, you know that if you have the outlet of the pump coming into a manifold like this, and there's nothing to expand, you don't have what they call an extraol tank or a diaphragm tank to absorb the pressure and actually build and store energy in the form of that rubber diaphragm and air that is compressed above it. What happens is the pump short cycles. So when the valve is open and we're taking a shower, as long as the water's running, it works perfect. The minute you shut it off, the pump has to short cycle, and or you know, eventually it builds up pressure and shuts down if none of the valves are open. But didn't work out too good, so I got to redo the plumbing. Again, I want to get this in one of the compartments so it's in the dry,